I think some people get locked into narratives, and I
Yes.
understand that from I'll just call it more of a marketing perspective. This is who I am. This is my
Hmm.
persona. This is my message. But that's not science,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
like you, people like have said, "What have you changed your mind on?" I'm like, "How much time do you have?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are several core paradigms of what I thought was
Mm.
true. The importance of protein, not so important. The importance of plant versus animal protein, not so important,
Mm.
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. And even myself, like with the lighter weight and the muscle adaptation, I'm like, I thought it was true. And then you do your own study and you're like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my dad didn't go to university, but he's a pretty sharp guy. And he said, what good is a mind if you can't change it, right?
I'm Laurel Beversdorf, strength and conditioning coach.
And I'm Dr. Sarah Court, physical therapist.
With over 30 years of combined experience in fitness, movement, and physical therapy,
We believe in strong opinions, loosely held,
which means we're not here to hype outdated movement concepts.
or to gatekeep or fearmonger strength training for women.
For too long, women have been sidelined in strength training.
Oh, you mean handed pink dumbbells and told to sculpt?
Whatever that means, we're here to change that with tools, evidence, and ideas that center women's needs and voices.
Let's dive in. Welcome to the Movement Logic Podcast. My name is Dr. Sarah Court. I'm a physical therapist, and I am joined by my co-host. I always want to say Dr. Laurel Beversdorf. She's a doctor to me.
Madame.
Madam Beversdorf, CSCS, certified strength and conditioning specialist.
Yeah, I think we
was
can just leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not doctor certified.
Not yoga teacher, because I
Yeah.
just have not taught yoga in a long time. And
Me neither.
even though I'll always be a yoga teacher, I'm not currently teaching yoga, and I don't have any plans to do any of that in the near future. So
Yeah, fair.
you just say strength coach.
Strength coach. I have a question.
Yeah.
We've recorded this a little bit in advance, but currently Laurel has done the marathon.
Whoop whoop.
How can we get a sort of, I know you're going to talk more about it on your own podcast. Can we get sort of a
Yeah.
15-second, 30-second summary?
Okay. The short version is that I got the stomach flu on Tuesday with a Monday race. The stomach flu got better and went away about mid-Saturday.
Mhm.
My friend gave me 2 liters of IV fluids on Sunday morning.
A nice friend.
Oh, so nice. Actually, it might have been Saturday afternoon. I don't remember, but I got 2 liters of IV fluids, which is the maximum amount she said I could have safely. And I held down an entire plate of gnocchi Saturday night. That's when I knew
Nice.
I was turning it around. Then I carb loaded all day Sunday. And Monday I ran and I PR'd my marathon. So
Yeah, you
I got
did.
a 15-second faster time. It's hard to
Amazing.
believe that you can just run that entire race and beat your time by 15 seconds. I mean, it comes
Yeah.
down to the wire.
Yeah.
My legs stopped working around mile 20, 22, really started to have some cramping where, like, despite trying to take another step forward, sometimes my legs were like not there.
They're like,
It's like
no,
they were
thank you.
offline. And then I got to the finish line and I had to sit in a wheelchair and be wheeled into the medical tent, and they helped me be able to walk again. And then
Yeah.
I obviously qualified for Boston. I mean, almost certainly qualified for Boston again. I don't know that I'm going to run it again next year. I think it's
That's fair.
little too soon. Plus, Sarah and I have should we talk about that?
I mean, yes, it's not happening for a while, but sure.
Well, next year around Boston Marathon time, Sarah and I are going to be
Which is late April.
Sarah and I are going to be speaking at the Real Coaches Summit.
Yep.
So we'll put that link in the bio, in the show notes.
Somewhere. We'll put it somewhere.
I guess it's almost sold out, but it's in Las Vegas, Nevada. And we're speaking alongside Dr. Alyssa Olenek. I like to say that because she's a superstar in my eyes, but she's going to be there. And then a bunch of other cool folks are going to be there. So if you're interested, you want to come to a cool strength training and strength and conditioning coaches summit, that's going to happen sometime around the end of April. So we'll have firmer dates hopefully soon. But anyway, I don't know that I want to be training for a marathon and getting ready to go speak at a summit. And honestly, like, my dad died. His birthday was on the Boston Marathon. that plus like taking 2 classes for my master's degree and then also coaching my daughter's softball team all at the same time put me over the edge,
Yeah.
right?
See how it would.
Just a little bit of burnout, just a
Yeah.
little bit of I'm over it. So I'm just really enjoying not exercising very much these days.
Nice.
Wonderful. Doing a lot of gardening. But yeah, thank you for asking. The marathon was against all odds a huge success.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with how it turned out. I had a
Yeah.
blast with my friends who joined me from like kindergarten and 6th grade, like
That's so cool.
friends for a long
Amazing.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't lie. I was worried. I was worried when
Yeah.
when I started getting the text about the stomach bug. I was like, oh shit.
That's about the worst thing you could have in terms of like
Yeah.
minor illnesses before a
Right.
marathon.
Any sort of like gastrointestinal
Yeah,
problems is
yeah.
not what you want.
Not
Like
good.
You would be better off having like a broken wrist.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
but at the same time, I knew this was Laurel. And I was like, honestly, like if anyone's gonna pull this out, she will. Truly. So
Yeah, I
kudos
mean,
to you. Well done.
I was gonna do whatever it took to cross the line. Like,
Yeah,
so I
that's
had
you.
worked
That's
out,
you.
I had worked out a walk run pace. I was like,
Right.
I think I could
No,
do
I
it in
remember
6
Laurel
hours.
texted me. So you texted me being like, okay, so I could definitely still finish it. If I walk run, it'll take 6 hours. I was like, okay. But I also had a feeling that that's not what was going to happen. And it didn't. So kudos to you. So today, oh my God, I'm like just fizzing with excitement about this. So we got a chance to sit down and talk to Dr. Stu Phillips, who, if you're on Instagram at all and you follow people like us and Lauren Colenso Semple and Amanda Thebe and all of those other people who are Jen Gunter, Susan Davis, Stu Phillips is people think about like calling someone iconic and they think maybe like Lady Gaga. To me, Stu Phillips is iconic in the same capacity as Lady Gaga, but for very different reasons.
He's kind of the Michael Jordan of like exercise science researchers, specifically around hypertrophy and specifically around protein. Yeah.
And at the same time, what a fucking nice guy.
No ego, so humble, so kind.
Yeah.
And we're thrilled that he said he likes our work.
Yes. Oh my God. He complimented us, you guys. We were both like,
he spent more time complimenting us than we were complimenting him.
I know. I looked at Laurel in that moment and I was like, oh.
I know. We're like, keep talking, go on.
What happened during the interview is we had some technical issues. We had some sound issues. We had to stop and start. So we ended up with a much shorter interview than we hoped, but you're going to hear that here today. And because he's such a kind and generous human being, Stu, as he told us to call him, has agreed to do a second interview. So we're going to have a part 2 with Stu.
Part 2 with Stu.
But please do enjoy this part 1 with Stu. We did get in some good questions.
Yeah, and, despite it being short, it is full of gold
nuggets.
Yeah, yes, gold nuggets. So many amazing takeaways and like one of my new favorite terms.
When he said that, I was like, in my head, flashing on the number of social media posts that we can make about progressive
stimulus. It just solves a lot of problems in my eyes.
It really does. Okay. Before we get into the interview, we just want to let you know that our Lift for Longevity course, which has been on a bit of a hiatus, is coming back at the beginning of September. We have not yet picked an exact date. We're going to do that, but sort of that back to school Labor Day time frame is what we're thinking. If you want to get a little bit of an intro to lifting barbells as a preparation for our Lift for Longevity course, which a lot of people do, you can get our barbell mini course, which is 100% free. You can sign up for the barbell mini course at the link in our show notes, and you get just chock full of good information on how to do a deadlift, how to do a squat, and how to do a bench press, which are sort of the 3 really foundational lifts of weightlifting. They're not the only ones, obviously, and a lot of great information around terms that you need to know for weightlifting, like progressive overload, or perhaps we're going to start saying progressive stimulus, reps in reserve, RPE, all that kind of stuff. So all of that, you get a ton of learning around for the within the barbell mini course, and then you're in good situation to just roll right into our main course. So you can sign up for that at the link in our show notes. And is there anything else we need to add before we get on with the interview?
No.
Okay. Well, here you go. Dr. Stu Phillips is a distinguished university professor and Tier 1 Canada Research Chair in Skeletal Muscle Health. He is a full professor in kinesiology and an adjunct professor in the School of Medicine at McMaster University. He's a fellow of the American College of Sports Medicine, ACSM, and the Canadian Academy of Health Sciences. His research is focused on the impact of nutrition and exercise on human skeletal muscle protein turnover. He is also keenly interested in diet and exercise-induced changes in body composition. He currently has more than 33,000 career citations, that's bananas, and 400 original scientific research and review papers. It's just an astonishing amount of work. Dr. Phillips has given us permission to call him Stu. So, Stu, I don't know if you know our background with your work, but a few years ago, we came across your Instagram posts discussing the 2021 Kistler-Fischbacher systematic review and meta-analysis around bone density, what exercises promote bone density, and it had a major impact on us.
Oh, cool.
At the time, our Lift for Longevity weightlifting course was heavily influenced by the LiftMore trial, which concluded that heavy lifting and impact training were necessary to improve bone density. So we built our 6-month course around progressing women towards heavy barbell training.
Right.
And then we saw your posts summarizing the review findings that bone density could improve with moderate and even lighter loads as well. And we realized that we had to change our message. We could no longer honestly claim that the older evidence was superior to this review.
Yeah.
We didn't abandon heavy lifting because we still see enormous value in teaching women to lift heavy. Sure. And our course already included lighter and moderate training as well, because you have to on-ramp to heavy. You don't start there. But we felt it was important to publicly acknowledge that newer evidence had changed our thinking. Yeah. And so we made a podcast episode about it. We posted about it online that we are changing our message, because in an online space full of grift, especially around women's health and especially around bone health, we wanted to model what it looks like to update your message when the evidence changes. All of that to say, we are very glad for your work, and we consider you a highly trustworthy resource. So thank you.
Thanks. That's very gracious of you to say. I just need to point out it's not my work, but it was definitely a review of some work done by the same author of the LiftMore trial. I mean, I don't know if that's ironic, but it's certainly an interesting twist, because when I started saying that message about bone, everybody defaulted to Belinda Beck's LiftMore trial, and they said, "Have you read this?" I'm like, "I have." Have you?
Because not only have I,
this thing, it actually, we'll get into it, I'm sure.
Yeah. All right, so can we let's get into it. Let's talk about that systematic review and meta-analysis for a bit. So, first of all, what motivated you to make a post about it 4 years after it was published? Was it that, I mean, assuming it wasn't because you had just encountered it, but was it because there was perhaps another reason, like a bunch of meatheads, I don't know, us, who were touting it must be heavy, lift heavy shit, you can only build bone with heavy weights, and you wanted to spread the word that maybe not necessarily true?
Yeah, I think that my initial interest was mainly stemmed a lot from some of our work that we were doing in muscle. And again, to sort of slightly shift the paradigm, the sort of what's called the strength endurance continuum in muscle says that down at the heavy end of just a few repetitions, that develops strength. And that's absolutely spot on true. It's as much to do with coordination and lifting as it is with anything else, because it then said that the sweet spot, in quotation marks, for hypertrophy was somewhere between 8 to 12 repetitions. And then as you moved away from that, it showed hypertrophy diminishing. And our work and that of a number of other labs basically showed that range of repetitions that was good for hypertrophy, as long as you work you don't need absolute drag them out, drop dead failure. In other words, you can't do it and you need a spotter, but you need to come close to that. And so muscle, it is not bone, I'll admit to that, but it is mechanically sensitive. And we were sort of pushing this lower load works narrative and evidence-based, not just the narrative. And I think that now that we're sort of beyond the point of people saying that that's not correct. And then,
well, some people still are.
yeah. That's okay. That's okay. I'm over it. Like, we just
Yeah.
published the ACSM position stand, and I'm
Yeah.
like, the evidence is so. If you want to argue counterfactually to that, you're out to lunch. Like, I think the evidence is overwhelming. Now,
Yeah.
preference is another thing, and all kinds of things. So, and then the interesting part was I kept posting on the muscle outcome and there because I get that. And then a lot of women were saying, what about bone? Because you have to lift heavy shit, as you pointed out. And I was like, well, actually, that's not true. There's this meta analysis, and I said it's done by a very good group, and it's actually touted by Belinda Beck, who's the Lift More senior author and the senior author on the meta analysis, in interacting with her on X as evidence saying that, look, you need to lift heavy loads. I'm like, actually, your own meta analysis says you don't. Like, your own data shows that other loads work too. And actually, the evidence for the heavier loads, and it's mostly, I'm sure, because there's not as many trials done in that area, is it works, but it's not. And this is where it really begun to rub me a little bit, because I'll give you my so my wife is a cardiovascular physiologist, and at the time she's going through menopause, and so I'm watching from the outside in and going like, this is crazy. Like, if men had to go through this, like, we'd have had a global task force to solve it by lunchtime, right? So, but women just grin and bear it, ladies. And I thought, this is really a disservice. And so then you start clicking on a few things on Instagram, because all my wife and all of her friends are all searching for answers. And I'm like, well, we know what causes a hot flash. And my wife, cardiovascular physiologist, don't pick an argument. Uh, wrong person, also perimenopausal, like double bad, was like, no, we don't. And I was like, and I sort of started doing, we don't. Like, we have ideas and we know it's vasomotor, but what causes it? I thought, how can we not know this? And so I'm getting on Instagram, probably had about 20, 30,000 followers at the time, thought I'm doing okay. And I'm getting these clips sent to me from prominent MDs. You've taken issue with several, so I don't think it's bad to say Vonda Wright as one of them, saying you need to. And we go to great lengths in my lab when I'm talking to my students to distinguish between need and sufficient.
Yeah.
So heavy loads are sufficient to improve muscle, bone, tendon. Are they needed? And the answer is no. So I think that we can put a underscore under that as saying that's what sort of primarily motivated me to say, everybody keeps citing the Liftmore trial, and the Liftmore trial was a trial of an at-home exercise group versus a group that lifted heavy weights. So it's really, it's a appropriate design for a control group, but a control group that's not lifting lighter weights. They're essentially doing like nothing, and that's fine.
Yeah,
That's
Pilates kind of
that's
Pilates-based
fine.
exercise,
And
I would
even
say.
if you read the trial, the control group in there wasn't even designed to affect their bone density. So by design, it's going to show a difference. And but that's been taken as heavy weights are needed, and I'm like, that's not what the design showed.
Yeah.
It's actually not what the paper could conclude.
Right.
But it has been the narrative that Dr. Beck and others have sort of spun off of that. And Vonda Wright is another one who has said, you need to do this. Yeah. And I'm like, no, you don't.
It's interesting.
You don't have those data.
Yeah, it is interesting of the menopause and their various sort of like angles and things. Vonda Wright does seem to be the one that's very stuck on this you need to lift heavy model. Stacy Sims is kind of another one, not necessarily for bone. She just thinks it's for like women's health generally.
No, Stacy Sims is still stuck on it has to be heavy for muscle.
Right.
To be clear.
Yeah. And that's actually, I don't see how you have a leg to stand on.
I know.
With that, because that's been shown to be untrue in men, women, older women, and everything else. And have me back in about 18 months and we'll give you the data on perimenopause as well, because we've got that trial going. And then
Nice.
after that, which I don't see any reason why the physiology would be any different from a muscular perspective, then what do you lean on? But
Yeah.
I think some people get locked into narratives, and I
Yes.
understand that from a, I'll just call it a more of a marketing perspective. This is who I am. This is
Mm-hmm.
my persona. This is my message. But that's not science,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
like you, people like have said, "What have you changed your mind on?" I'm like, "How much time do you have?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are three or four, several core paradigms of what I thought was
Mm.
true. The importance of protein, not so important. The importance of plant versus animal protein, not so important,
Mm.
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. And even myself, like with the lighter weight and the muscle adaptation, I'm like, I thought it was true. And then you do your own study and you're like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my dad didn't go to university, but he's a pretty sharp guy. And he said, what good is a mind if you can't change it? Right. But some people are
Right.
just
Nice.
willing to budge off of the stance that
Yeah.
they have. And
Yeah.
I understand that for a lot of reasons, but it's now you're just a denier of data and
Yeah.
Mm.
science. And,
Yeah. And ultimately,
that's
it's
not
doing
what
a
you meant to say.
disservice.
Yeah.
I don't have a
Yeah.
million followers or
Right.
anything else
Right.
like that. So
Yeah. So if we talk about bone and its response to load, we know from muscle hypertrophy, we're talking a lot now about effort and proximity to failure. Like you said,
mm,
not absolute failure, but
yeah,
getting close to it.
yeah.
Do you think there's an equivalent concept for bone? Meaning, like, are sets of exercises more effective for bone when they're taken close enough to failure, or is bone more dependent on absolute load?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know that I can give you a definitive answer. My sense is that based on the meta-analysis and based on, well, several other systematic reviews and meta-analyses, as well as what we call some network meta-analyses in bone, is that a lot of things tend to work, and probably it's the more consistent you are in the behavior in terms of loading that determines the long-term outcome.
Mm.
So I think that there's probably more overlap with respect to the range of loads that work for bone, as opposed to it all has to be down here in the heavy end, because that's what the rodent and the animal data suggest, right?
Mm.
Which is, I can understand that as the platform to test that in people and say that it works. But I think that we're going to find that more loads than are currently sort of talked about in a more popular sense are going to work for bone. The proximity to failure part is maybe not as true in bone, actually. It is in muscle. Muscle, you have to do it because it recruits all then of the muscle fibers, but bone is really, we know from the impact work is you only need to do about 15 to 20 jumps, and that impact is it, and that's what bone, that's all it needs. And then if you do more than that, it's as if it switches off. So the mechanical sensation in bone is a little bit different. So I'm
Mm.
not sure I could definitively say,
Mm.
but I do have a colleague, and maybe you could have Laura Gian Gregorio. She's from the University of Waterloo
Mhm.
on your show if you haven't already. She's the bone queen around here. So
Nice.
All right. Definitely going to write that down on our short list.
yeah.
All right. So these papers categorized interventions by intensity, or rather the Kistler-Fischbacher paper categorized interventions by intensity. But exercise intensity itself is quite tricky to define across
Mhm.
different modes. So they
Yeah.
had so many different modes of ways that impact was introduced, even resistance was introduced. So, how confident are you that we actually know what the key osteogenic variable is?
Yeah, and I think that goes back to my previous answer. I don't know that I could say I'm like, oh, it's rock solid. This is absolutely the way it happens. So to your point, I think, and this has sort of been in the same, to use the low load, high load sort of thing, is that heavier loads, when you lift them and you fail after doing it 8 to 10 times, is simply the inability to generate muscular force. I use this, but I think of like a knee extension or some leg extension, and everybody crying, the weight stack slams down. You're like, okay, I'm done. Lighten it up and go to close to failure or failure. it's still intense at the end, but it's a different mechanism that leads to the fatigue, right?
Mhm.
So it's more of a metabolite buildup
Mm.
and it hurts.
Mhm.
But I think it
Mm-hmm.
still feels intense, right? But
Mhm.
the intensity is used in resistance exercises if it's analogous to intensity in aerobic exercise.
Mhm.
So heavier loads are close to 100% of VO2 peak, and lighter loads are somewhere down here. And I don't think that they're completely congruent in that
Mhm.
you can translate it like that. But it's a great question, Laurel, and I could really do appreciate it. I still think effort has a lot to do with it, is this sort of the internal
Mhm.
that I feel like that's and we have a facility down here, 500 community members, average age about 73, and we have RPE scales pasted everywhere.
Mhm.
And so 10 out of 10 is red, 9 out of 10 is orange, seven
Mhm.
and 8 out of 10 are yellow. And we're like, I don't need you to be in the red,
Mhm.
but I'd like you to get at least into the yellow. If you're feeling good, try for the orange. And
Mhm.
after it takes about a month or two, people begin to appreciate what that is, and the
Mhm.
feedback is there. I want to say that that would translate into a positive bone outcome
Mhm.
if repeated over time.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
But there's probably some sort of a trade-off, and I'd agree even in muscle, lighter weights at a certain point are, it's not like picking up and lifting your cell phone like, a
Mhm.
1,000 times. That's definitely endurance. So there's
Mhm.
probably a load range that you need to fit into. But
Yeah.
my guess is it's probably a lot broader than we're thinking.
Yeah, I know intensity in strength training is sometimes defined as proximity to your max,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
then also sometimes defined as proximity to like a 10 on an RPE scale
right.
of
And,
1 to
and
10. And
that's
so
effort,
sometimes it's
right?
like, which is it? Because they're different.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and no, and absolutely. I mean, I think the classic sort of percent of your max is the aerobic analogy to you're working at 100% of VO2 peak, and you could sustain that for like a
Mhm.
minute or two, maybe,
Mhm.
and then you're done. But I
Yeah.
don't think it's exactly the same sort of thing. In other words, if you're down at 30% of your VO2 peak, then you can ride for hours. But
Yeah.
if you're 30% of your 1 RM, depending on what load it is, it's still pretty hard work. Like you probably are going to fail in certain lifts at around 25 to 30 repetitions. That's a
Mhm.
lot of
Yeah.
reps,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but
And it gets
you
painful.
fail. Yeah, it hurts in the end. We just finished a big trial in women. And we said at the end, like, rank your, and they're like, yeah, I call that intense.
Right.
So
Right.
intensity, as it sort of classically is defined, I think is perceptual in the end.
Right.
So,
Well, one is trying to be more objective, right? Trying to be more
right,
objective in that, like,
right,
we're within this percentage of your maximum, which we tested with an 1 RM max. And so now we're
right.
being objective. And the other one is like, how hard was that? How
How do
Yeah,
do,
you feel
yeah,
about
yeah,
that?
do
yeah,
you
Yeah.
have another rep?
yeah,
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
well,
Yeah.
if if
And
if
that's
you're going
that's
to
the
give me a
reps in
thousand dollars, I
reserve
do.
type concept, right? That's
Right.
the, do I need the spotter? And I'm
Yeah.
like, it's okay. So all of these workouts we're going to show you how to do, you won't need a spotter. So we don't need that
Mm,
last like vein popping out of your head rep, but we
Right.
need for you to feel like if I do one more, I'll be there. Or if I've got
Yeah.
two more, maybe three. And yeah.
So while we're talking about the Kistler-Fischbacher systematic review and meta-analysis, one of the things that we thought was interesting is that overall, in terms of where bone density was improved in the body,
Mm.
they found that the lumbar spine overall responded better to load than the femoral neck. Is there like a mechanical reason why we would expect with resistance training of any load taken to the right effort and all that kind of stuff? Is there any reason we would expect some sites to respond better than other sites? Like sometimes I'll have a patient come in and they're like, well, my DEXA score is this for my spine and this for my hip. Is this going to help both of those? And I'm always kind of like, so is there a reason why we might expect some areas to respond better than others, just from like a biomechanical standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key point there is the compressive forces that you would have in a spine simply from standing up and then doing anything that loads the spine. So if you put a bar across your shoulders and you're going to squat down and push it up, then that's immediately going to have some biomechanical forces that are going to compress the spine, turn on all the processes in bone to be able to respond. To get your femoral neck to respond, you essentially you're going to have to load the hip as well. So it's not like a squat wouldn't work. It's a little bit tougher to sort of get the right forces that compress that joint because it's not operating in an up-down plane. It's
Hmm.
basically operating on sort of a sideways angle. And so you've got to do something to engage your hips effectively. So cross hip maneuvers or anything like a hip hinge will load your femoral neck, but your spine's a big column of bone, and your femoral neck is actually it's a tiny little sort of head between a ball and a socket joint there, and it's tougher to respond. I mean, I think that it's a biomechanical and maybe site-specific answer to the question. The
Hmm.
same would be true of your wrist. If you're looking at your wrist bone mineral density, you would have to do something that engages that part of your body to improve your bone mineral density there. But those are three common sites that are surveyed to effectively look at where these programs have their effects. So you've got to do something that's site specific for sure.
Yeah.
Would it possibly be because there are no muscles that attach directly to the femoral neck?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you've got the anatomy down, so spot on.
Yeah,
I
there's
was
nothing
thinking,
pulling on
do
it
we start
directly.
talking about that? But effectively, yes. I mean, you have nothing that really sort of pulls, or there's not a tendon that crosses that joint that you go, oh, you're going to pull on
Yeah.
this. And so I mean, anything that effectively gets you a good hip hinge in there. So it is a deadlift, it is a squat, it is,
Yeah.
and I know everybody imagines then hundreds of pounds, and that's not necessarily true, I think,
Hmm.
as the meta-analysis even shows. So spot on. There's nothing that bridges and comes across, and so you can pull on this muscle and
Hmm.
then load that particular area of bone. So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we interviewed Dr. Belinda Beck, and we've
Mm,
done a fair amount of reading on osteogenesis and the
yeah.
biomechanics of that and how bone responds to forces. And like I've heard a couple of things. Like I heard Greg Knuckles on the Stronger by Science podcast talk about how it's like the muscles simultaneously contracting around a bone that creates a compression on the bone because muscle forces are so damn high,
Yeah.
because they're many of them are disadvantaged, and so they have to create like a lot more tension just to move the bone based on how they attach and things like that. And then Belinda Beck talked a lot about the bending forces that happen to the bone,
Yep.
which ends up being more of a tensile load or a
Yep.
shearing load. And then you hear about impact and that bends the bone. But now you're talking about the barbell creating compression, just the sheer mass of the barbell creating compression on the bone. And there's all these ideas of the type of loading that causes the bone to grow itself stronger. So it seems like we maybe don't really actually know for sure exactly what it is. Is that right? Or is it all of it?
So I think it would be fair to say that from animal models, and this, I mean, this is the genesis of this sort of high load only works hypothesis, right? Is that there's this model that effectively from animals says is that the higher loads really are the only ones that work. And then you've
Mm,
got to remember that most of the animal models come from rodents, and rodents don't stand like this. They're down on all fours. And so their skeletal muscle structure and how things work is fundamentally different. They're similarly jointed, but not exactly the same as how humans work.
mhm,
And to your point, I mean, I think that I mean, we're only now beginning to sort of peel back some of the what's known as mechanical tension hypotheses in muscle to understand how a tissue translates tension into making new proteins. And bone is a
mhm.
fundamentally different tissue.
Yeah.
You've got two different groups of cells, and
Mm,
how they sense mechanical tension again is one of these areas that I think is definitely probably better developed than muscle, but still pretty incomplete. And so
mm,
I would I would guess the type of advances we're seeing in muscle where lower loads. And so instead of this sort of this is the sweet spot for hypertrophy and it doesn't happen here and it doesn't happen here is now, well, that's not true. We've got a range of loads that we know.
mm,
Bone changes much over much longer periods. They're much tougher studies to do than muscle.
mhm,
And That combined with what are all the load ranges that we'd need to do, you can see how these things begin to scale up. And bone is, I used to think it was the physiology of bricks and mortar, and all
Mm-hmm.
deference to bone people, that's not true. But it changes slowly. So you
Mm-hmm.
need a
Yeah.
minimum 6 month intervention, better yet, 1 year to see DEXA changes, which are
Mm-hmm.
kind of the gold standard. You can
Mm-hmm.
see changes in markers sooner,
Mm-hmm.
but our knowledge in that area is pretty incomplete. So I think
Yeah.
that's a fair comment.
Mm.
I had a follow up about the wrist bone building.
Yeah.
If we're thinking, because that's obviously a concern for some of my older patients, and if we're thinking about traditional weight training and doing things like rows and overhead press and all of the kind of like chest press, all that kind of thing, do we need, in terms of the wrist specifically, are we better off with something that might create more of a compressive force? So like maybe a bench press is better than a row, which would be not a compressive force, or like maybe a push-up is better. What do we have any understanding of like what positions or movements or loads are optimal for the wrist specifically?
Yeah, the answer is I don't think we do, and
Mm-hmm.
nothing that I've seen is like this is better than that. So it's, I mean, it's something that's going to load that area. So a bench press, put your wrist back and you're pushing up, that's engaging the right muscles in here that are pulling on the right tendons and affecting the bone structure in that space. One of the things that we do know with bone, and again, unlike muscle, is that muscle, you load it, and the more sort of loading you do, it's like, oh, that's awesome. And it becomes this big sponge for all the nutrients and it gets better. It's bone has a mechanism that when you load it or you get impact, you do that after about 15 or 20 times, and the bone's like, okay, that's enough of that. Like I'm effectively, so if you do 100 jumps or 100 loads, or it's not better.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really a small dose, and the impact that it likes and that sort of thing. You don't need to do more. More is not necessarily better.
Mm-hmm.
Consistency for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, I don't think that we're at that level of understanding about it. This would be better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loading around the joint is sort of the best kind of prescriptive advice that we could give for sure.
Cool. Should we
Awesome.
do our quick fire round?
Yeah, we have some quick fire, short answers only
Okay.
questions. Okay,
Right.
so this is the
Do your
challenge.
best.
Short only.
It's hard as a scientist to.
This is good for you. This is your protein. Okay. So, number one, most absurd protein product you have seen so far.
Protein water.
Okay.
Yeah, that's wild.
Well,
Yeah, but
first putting water in containers and selling it to people is that
Problematic.
grates me already.
Yeah.
I think my dad, God bless him, said it best. He goes, Fiji water. He goes, I've been to Fiji. He said they don't have enough water to export, and now they're exporting it. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Well
All right.
said.
Number two, one thing that the general public should stop worrying about. You gotta pick what just one.
How they should exercise, like just get out there and do it. Like yeah, the specifics are, it's in the margins. Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. One thing the general public should care more about.
Exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
stupid, right?
Yeah.
But I think, again, looking at the guidelines of which are self-report, so always the rosiest disposition, still failing miserably on getting the 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous, which might not be as much as we needed, as much as we thought, but definitely failing on the strength training guidelines where women, I've seen a survey recently from the UK saying about 5 to 7% of women are legitimately doing strengthening exercise twice a week. And
Wow.
so there's 93% of the population that needs more.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. What is, and this, it doesn't, not your advice, but what is one piece of advice you wish you could delete from Instagram?
These are tough, man.
I know.
Yeah, like worrying about protein is, and I know that's odd for a protein guy to say, but I'm like, People are just obsessed with it, and it really just needs to lay down a little bit. And like, it's important, but it's not an unlock to so many of the things that I keep hearing people say it's an unlock for.
Yeah.
Mm.
That seems so bad after 30 years of doing it, and then we get the right numbers, and then I'm like, stop obsessing about it. But it literally has become an obsession.
Yeah.
Last one. What's one idea that keeps getting recycled despite weak evidence?
Probably the idea that if you can't succeed at weight loss, that it's a failure of willpower.
Mm.
Mm.
And I say that against the backdrop of drugs now that are short-circuiting biology. It's not they're not helping with willpower, but they're short-circuiting the biology. And so we just need to drop the notion that if you can't lose weight and do it without drugs, that you're weak or you're less than.
Hmm. Thank you.
Awesome.
We need to do this again.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's like
We don't hate that at all. Are you kidding?
no, this is like I could talk with you folks. Like I love your content, I really do.
Oh,
And I know
thank you.
people say that, and I think some people, and I'm like, to me, it's almost a little bit embarrassing because I'm like, okay, great. It's because not
Yeah.
what I'm aiming for. I like engagement for sure, but I'm out there to try and give people the truth, right?
Yeah.
Right.
We both
But
have
you,
pretty
you
big egos, so we're
We're
very pleased to
we're
hear.
not very humble, so
Not at all.
yeah,
It's
We're
okay.
very
we're
It's all
happy to
good.
thrilled.
hear.
It's all
Keep
good. No, I'm
going,
good
keep
with the
going.
lack of humility, right? But you say real things, right? So and there's sometimes some hard truths in there, which I'm okay with. But when you contacted me, it's always like I'm like, okay, first check out what they do and
Mm.
who they are and what they say, because I don't want to get on something where I'm like,
Right.
okay, so
Right.
tell me about the peptide stack you're
Same.
doing. So I'm like, I looked at you stuff. I'm like, these guys, you're keeping it real, right?
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Holy shit, Laurel.
That was awesome.
That was so awesome.
Short
I'm
and full of amazing information.
Yes. And I'm not gonna lie. The fact that he likes us,
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean the fact that
It
he
just
goes
is.
and like looked at our work, he likes our posts and reshares our posts sometimes too, which he's
Yeah.
been doing
Yeah.
for a while. I don't know what post of ours originally got on his radar, but yeah, it's super cool to do this type of work that we do where I think of us, of course, as a physical therapist and a strength coach team, but we're also podcasters. And so we kind of live in this like recreational journalist slash
Yeah.
recreational social commentators. And it's a community of us type people, but then we've got like hardcore scientists like
Yeah.
Dr. Stu Phillips, who's a professor and a scientist, and then Dr. Lauren Colenso Semple's hardcore scientist, and like Dr. Jen Gunter. And I feel like this community online where like maybe we don't really know each other in person or we don't really converse outside of like just the resharing and commenting and like supporting each other on social media. But it gives me hope that when these evidence-based misinformation busting people kind of come together online, that we can somehow make a difference against the like tidal wave of grift and misinformation out there, and that we can help clear up some messes slash bring people into our sphere of influence and outside of the sphere of grift and misinformation, and that together with all of our different things that we do and ways that we have of communicating can like make a difference. And
Absolutely.
I think it does take multiple different types of people with multiple different amounts of time available to create content, but then also different ways of creating content, different
Yeah.
ways of saying it to
Different
do that.
voices.
You know,
Yeah. People are going to respond.
I
Yeah.
like to think of us as like being on kind of the same team, right? Not maybe at the same league, but
No.
the same team.
Right. We all play for the Bulls, but Stu Phillips is Michael Jordan.
It's Michael Jordan.
I would say as well, for me at least, when we're sort of standing among giants, for want of a better phrase, it's very validating to me to hear from him that he thinks what we're doing is good.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do get so much. I mean, I know that that's true on some level, but especially like we did a post recently that like brought a lot of the Menno trolls out. And it can sometimes feel a little bit like, oh
I know it
shit,
trolls.
are we right? Is this right?
Well, no, I never wonder about whether we're right or if this is right. I know we're not perfect and we get things wrong. I think we're standing on the right side of history here.
Yeah.
However, I get depressed that there are so many people who've been tricked and fooled and misled, and it's really hard to change people's minds. I could get better at it. I mean, I am working on it. I think I'm working on it. Anyway, I simultaneously want them to change their mind, but they also piss me off because I'm like, why don't you just suspend your disbelief for a second,
right,
and listen to what we're saying?
Yeah, and it's always hard because it's like it's sort of the same way that I think about Trump voters. There's going to be people who are just dig their heels in, and they're never going to change how they feel. There are people who are changing how they feel, but it's hard to identify who that might be. And especially in the comments section of a social media post, it's basically impossible. But yeah, I mean, I do feel like we're on the right side for sure. It's just for me very validating when like to me, a superstar knows what we're doing and thinks what we're doing is good. So that was great. And so we're going to have a part 2 because he's a very generous person, and that will be upcoming. But we hope you liked this episode, and please don't forget to rate, review, subscribe.
We've had a few. Can I just jump in about the reviews?
Yeah.
We've definitely had a few interesting negative reviews land. Did you
recently?
By chance? Yeah. Oh. Well, like one of them was
I don't see any of them until you send them to me.
One of them was like obviously pro MIDI. Another one has an interesting idea of what sexism is. But at any rate, if you do like our work and you have wondered if your review means anything, I mean, we are definitely attracting more negative reviews now that we've created content that ruffles people's feathers around their favorite venture-backed capitalist corporation and their favorite, doctor who sells supplements, or their favorite female physiology quote expert who still thinks that hypertrophy can only happen with heavy weights. I mean, so listen, help us out if you can and get in there and actually be one of the positive reviews that we have, because
I just read one while you were talking that says, well, you're sexist.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Well, she gave us 3 stars, but
so not terribly sexist.
I'm sure you didn't have enough time to
sexist.
read through her entire reason why we're sexist, which is, I'm like, how many episodes? How many episodes did you listen to before you wrote this? And
before you got real mad about
it's a little bit like reverse racism, where you're like, wow, I think maybe you should read a few more books on what sexism is. But anyway, so listen.
Yes, rate, review, subscribe.
Yeah. So complacency for things that you like, right? Like, don't be complacent. Like, let us know that you like what we're doing. I think we're much less complacent when there's something we hate or dislike, right? We're much more likely to jump in there and be like, you're sexist. And,
that's just being a human.
And listen, I'm fine with either one, but
yeah. If you feel motivated to review us, review us.
If you feel motivated / if you think we're doing good work, and if you want to weigh in.
Yeah. And also, don't forget, if you're interested in our course Lift for Longevity, which is starting in September, make sure you're on our mailing list. One of the easiest ways to do that, if you're not already, is to grab our free barbell mini course, which the link to that is in our show notes. All right. I'm looking forward to part 2.
Whoop whoop. Part 2 with Stu.
We will. Hang on. Come back in.
Yeah.
We will. Laurel just totally disengaged. I was like, we're not like that. We will see you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks. I'm glad we're no longer trying to say that in unison.
I know. That was a mistake.